end of the day, we still have children that are being victimized by adult decisions, and we have to care as adults, bringing these kids into these problems, exposing these kids to this trauma, and certainly many of these kids will never recover from their injuries. So this is a very serious issue, so I'm very happy to have with me the support of the prosecutor as well as the sheriff. The grim numbers that I talked about, last year there were 67 children shot in our city under the age of 17. 9 of them were killed. 9. So far this year, 6 children, all under the age of 17, with the youngest being 2, were shot, getting a hold of these weapons and either shooting themselves, and one incident we had recently where a child shot another child. The plan to end the cycle is not an easy answer. I mean, we certainly need our community partnerships, we need ceasefire, we need our clergy, but at the end of the day, we need people to make better decisions. I mean, that's what it really comes down to, is people making the right decision. When you bring a gun into a home, it is a tremendous undertaking. It is something that once you make a decision to do, you have to look at your own limitations, you have to look at your own abilities, you have to have the conversation with your children, and you have to make the decision to keep the gun out of reach of the children, period. Children are paying attention, and young kids are paying attention to us as parents, and they're making decisions based on what they've seen us do. Also, social media and television, they're emulating what they are seeing being done in those venues. And so a conversation is most important. The reality of it is, we'll be here again if we don't make better decisions. We have gun locks. We're going to be giving out gun locks. Each precinct has gun locks. But the reality of it is, when you buy a new gun, guess what's in the box with the gun? A gun lock. So you have to use the gun lock and not just have the gun lock. And the argument that the gun lock takes too long to get to the weapon and all of those things, then you have to evaluate, if you're in that kind of circumstance, what is the best place to keep the weapon that you have accessibility. Under the bed versus putting on a gun lock is obviously not a good choice. But at this time, I'm going to bring up Madam Prosecutor for a few words as it relates to what we're going to be doing going forward and the charges that one could face if the weapon isn't properly secured. Madam Prosecutor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Chief, and with my friend the Sheriff and the rest of the partners standing here from Ceasefire and other organizations that are trying to make a difference. I've been beating this drum for about 5 years. Back, I think it was 2016, we had 27 children in the city of Detroit that we were either killed or seriously injured in the homes and in the cars of lawful gun owners. And that's when I started with this crusade to try to get the laws changed, and I'm still waiting 5 years later for these laws to be changed here in Michigan, and I'm told even now that what I call child safety access laws don't have a chance in Hades of passing in the state of Michigan. To me, this is not a Second Amendment issue, this is not a gun ownership issue, this is a child safety issue. And just in the last few years, 22 children have been shot in the homes or in the cars or the backyards of homes of lawful gun owners where children have found the gun. And I'm not talking about in a place like a locked closet. I'm talking about in a crib. I'm talking about in a bottom dresser drawer that remains open, on the coffee table, under the bed, under the pillow. And really one of the most egregious places is at the top of a Game Boy console where the children play. If you don't have a gun, if you don't have a child that comes to your home ever, I don't care where you leave your gun. If you are a lawful gun owner, you have to accept responsibility and store that gun safely. That's all we're talking about, is preserving the children. So some of the charges that we have been charging, and this office in this city was the first office to charge people responsible for leaving these guns in obvious places where you know children can get to very easily. Because the reality is that if you have a gun in your home, your children probably know where it is. They not be able to get to it no matter how, if you're responsible, but they're going to know where it is. So some of the charges that we charge careless, reckless, or negligent use of a firearm with injury or death resulting, which is a 2-year high misdemeanor. This is charged by our office usually when there's a non-parent or non-guardian individual that leaves their firearm unsafe and readily accessible to a child that they know is going to be in the house. For example, a visitor comes to a home with a gun. The second charge that we charge frequently based on the state of our laws, and again, these laws need to be changed, and we've been trying to do that for 5 years here in Michigan. Child abuse in the second degree, and this is commonly charged by our office when a parent or guardian or other person caring for the child leaves an unsafe firearm that's readily accessible. Like I said, obvious places. We even had one that was found in other areas of the house, like on the kitchen table, like I said earlier. We also charge involuntary manslaughter, and we do this rarely, and this could be charged when there's a death and a grossly negligent failure to perform a legal duty. An example would be when a person purposely leaves a loaded gun on a table, the child sees it, knows it's there, the adult knows it's there as well, the child gets it and shoots and often fatally injures themselves or another person. In 2020, 2021, and thus far in 2022, no child has died as a result of unsafe storage. But we already have 3 such cases in our young year of 2022. We'll charge other gun charges when it's appropriate, and we've even had some repeat offenders. And so we will treat them differently when they come through. The bottom line is, if you have a gun, if you have a deadly weapon, store it, put it in a place where children can't get to it. It's really that simple. All of these deaths, all of these serious injuries, 22 in number in recent years, could have been absolutely and totally prevented. And I just don't know how anyone can have an argument against that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Prosecutor. I also want to acknowledge my exec team. Please forgive me. I always forget you, but you work very, very hard. Starting at the end, AC.
Assistant Chief Charles Fitzgerald, Enforcement Operations. Assistant Chief David LaValle, Professional Development. First Assistant Chief Todd Bedison, Office of Support.
Second Deputy Chief Kyrie Joy Holt, Chief Neighborhood Liaison.
And our phenomenal partners at Ceasefire.
Quincy Smith, Community Organizer, Ceasefire Detroit.
Bishop Daryl Harris, Ceasefire Faith-Based Coordinator.
Thank you all. At this time, I'm going to ask Sheriff Washington to come up for a few words.
Thank you, Chief, and to those who are here, Madam Prosecutor. This whole thing about children finding guns and using them against themselves and against other children, it's become very personal to me. Not only as your sheriff, your Wayne County sheriff, but I am a concealed pistol license instructor. And I've been doing that for a long time now. And we beat this thought into our students' heads all the time about safe gun storage. It's got to be one of the biggest things we talk about when we're talking about you choosing to be gun owners. With all of the responsibility that we have as adults in our life, we decide to say, and we want to carry a gun, or we want to be a gun owner. Well, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, a whole lot of responsibility. And if we're not taking this seriously, as the chief said, as I heard him say just a couple of days ago, then some of us just don't need guns. Because when children find guns and they use them against themselves and others, it is totally our fault as adults. Someone said we got to talk to children about this. No, we have to talk to the gun owners about this, because we're the ones that say we want to have a gun and we want to put that responsibility on ourselves. So when we do that, we got to take care of that. We have to own it. And if we don't, then there's going to be some repercussions and some consequences to these children finding guns. And as the prosecutor said, you're going to be charged. And so I just ask you, as a CPL instructor, as your Wayne County Sheriff, these gun locks, that's all you need. You just have to secure your guns. And you have to use gun locks when you're not wearing a gun every day or using a gun every day. I have a 2-year-old grandchild. And when she unexpectedly comes over to my house, I have to think first, right away, where are my guns? It's got to be the most important thing we think about when we're gun owners. And I'm not having a conversation with her as a 2-year-old about guns. I'm having a conversation with my grown son, who is a CPL holder, who has children in his home, about how are you storing your gun and are you being safe? That's the conversation. And so we have to do that, and we have to be very serious about it. And if we don't, as the prosecutor already told you, as the chief said, as I'm saying, there's going to be some consequences and some repercussions. So just get your gun locks, store your guns safely, and I think we all going to be better. We can't keep hearing about this every month, about children finding guns and using them against themselves. Thank you, Chief, and please. God bless us all.
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate that. I want to just give you all a little bit more context. So January 4th, 4-year-old accidental shooting. January 10th, 12-year-old accidental shooting. January 14th, 3-year-old self-inflicted gunshot accidental shooting. February 7th, 2-year-old self-inflicted gunshot accidental shooting. February 17th, 5-year-old accidental shooting, possible accidental shooting. We're still investigating. And it was a 5-year-old. And as recent as February 19th, 2-year-old possible self-inflicted gunshot. We're still investigating. This is 2022. This is what we're off to. This is where we're at. So there's no nice words. There's no kind words we can put on this. We got to care about our kids. These are Detroit's children. We have to care. We have to care. And if you don't have the ability to have a gun in your home, as the sheriff said, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't. As a police officer for 26 years and raising a daughter, she had a healthy fear of my weapon. I kept it secured. I had the conversation. If I accidentally leave my gun out, tell me where it's at. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. There needs to be a healthy fear of these weapons. These children are hurting themselves. At this time, I would like to invite D.C. Hope to come up for a couple words for our community.
Thank you, Chief. As I look in the room, I see so many of you all who have dedicated time and energy for this campaign. One, to stop the violence, enough is enough, and for our child safety campaign. And it is my appeal to the community that you stand with us and you take note to one of the platforms that we have out here. Because the flip side of this is the devastation that we have to face when we have to walk the streets and we have a family that says, remember my child's name. Remember my child's name. 5 years old, a life taken too soon. Remember my child's name. As we prepare for this vigil that's coming up this week on a child taken from us too soon, the message will be, remember his name. I make this appeal to you to join our campaign and to walk with us, to stop the violence, to lock up the guns, and be a part of the right hand of justice. Let's stop the violence and keep the peace. Lock your guns up and be a part of this movement. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll take any questions that you have, and thank you, D.C. We want to do any questions on this first, and then we'll do the next part.
Prosecutor Worthy, can you talk about the law changes that you want to see specifically?
Yes, I should first say that Michigan, this is not the first state that has it. About 2/3 of the country doesn't have them, but about 1/3 of the country does have these child safety access laws. It's not something new. When we started doing the research, so what we want to see is we want to have a schedule that's kind of escalating. If a child finds a gun in the home where you are and it's not stored safely, and that's not rocket science, you don't leave it in a crib, you don't leave it on a table, you don't leave it in the bed, you don't leave it on the floor, you don't leave it within eyesight of a child. That's really simple. I don't know why that's so hard to understand. And they don't do anything with it, they don't hurt anybody, then that's a misdemeanor. The penalties raise. If someone is minorly injured, it's a high misdemeanor. If someone is injured or shot, it's a higher felony. And if someone's killed, it's a higher felony. So we've had all kinds of issues. When we first started doing this, I wanted every child under the age of 18 to be punished if a parent or a guardian or someone around that child has a gun in a house unsafely stored, to be punished in this way. My colleagues up north told me it's not unusual for a 16-year-old to have a weapon for hunting, and they come in the house and lean it against the doorway, fully loaded. So we compromised and got it down to 13, and we still had a problem getting it passed. So we just want our children to be safe. We want this to happen immediately. And unfortunately, I am told, and I hope that I'm wrong, that this will never pass in the state for various reasons.
Prosecutor, just to piggyback that, in the states, the 17 or so other states, has it worked, as far as prosecuting these cases?
We do have that data available, and if you're interested, we can get that to you. I don't have it with me now.
Okay, no problem. And Chief, can you give us anything more on the 2-year-old, the most recent child-involved shooting?
That one's still wide open, the 2-year-old self-inflicted from the 19th. Yeah, there are a number of components of that that aren't lining up right now, and they're still investigating. So we hope to bring closure to that pretty soon. But we do have some concerns because, as I indicated, investigators can't close the loop on a few of the answers that we have thus far. We may be very soon submitting to the prosecutor on that. So.
Good afternoon, Chief. I was looking at a presentation to City Council about where to spend ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan funds, and in that proposal there were $7.8 million for a gun violence reduction plan. So it's a two-part question. Could you first give any details on that plan, and second, does that plan include anything that is aimed at preventing some of these accidental youth shootings?
Yeah, and so I don't have enough information with me right now to unpack the plan in detail, but a lot of it has to do with conditions that are unacceptable, right? I mean, ShotSpotter, expansion of ShotSpotter. There should never be a time that we're okay with bullets going off in our community and nobody's checking. And so what ShotSpotter does, and it doesn't key on race, it doesn't key on gender, it keys on anyone, including police, who are pulling a trigger in our community, and we need to investigate to see why that's happening. The other part of it is education. I mean, we cannot arrest ourselves out of this. I mean, we can, Madam Prosecutor is pursuing charges on people who, irresponsibly store their weapons and kids get killed or shot. But the reality of it is, I've got a kid shot, I got grandma in one instance who needs to help the kid get better. So what sense does it make, what are you solving locking grandma up when no one's there to bring the kid back to health, which is what the kid needs. So because he's been shot. So, it's a very complicated problem, and it's layered. It's not a simple answer, but it's not as simple as, locking everybody up and everybody's going to make the right decision. The answer is education and prevention and understanding, two things can be true at once. We can honor your Second Amendment rights to go out and get a gun, but if you're not responsible enough to have a gun, then maybe there's a better solution for you. So yes, we're going to be working towards education as well.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chief. Eli Newman, WDET. I'm hoping, I know we've spent a lot of time talking about these incidents as it involves youth, but in terms of looking at some of these issues regarding accidental shootings, self-inflicted shootings, for the broader populace, I mean, what are we seeing right now in Detroit?
Well, I mean, there's been an uptick in gun purchases around the country in the millions since COVID hit. The first year of COVID, and I don't have the numbers with me, but the first year of COVID, you couldn't buy a bullet. I mean, there was no bullet. Literally, there was no bullets available. Record numbers of guns were purchased, and so as a result, as I've indicated, those guns fall into the wrong hands. That happens in Detroit. It happens in Baltimore. It happens in Chicago. I know because we look and we talk to our colleagues in these other agencies. So there's not one thing driving it. Lots of guns, lots of people willing to make impulsive decisions, whether it be to use the gun to solve a relatively simple dispute, or to leave the gun unsecured, or to come home late and not put the gun away safely, thinking that the children are asleep. I mean, we've got so many stories that we can tell you that led to these bad decisions. We could all write a book. But at the end of the day, we don't want to write a book. We want to save kids' lives, and that's what we're here for today. How do we save kids? We have to make better decisions.
Sure, and how is this trend affecting suicide in this gun-related suicide in the city?
I haven't analyzed gun-related suicide because really for us, our flashpoint is that our babies are dying, and Detroit's babies are getting shot at record numbers for us. And so that's my focus, is for us to collectively work towards how can we solve that problem. Certainly there's an uptick in suicide around the country. And there are a number of nexus that attribute to that, one being COVID, isolation and things like that. But we haven't unpacked that because as much as I love mental health and I'm trained in it, my job here is to keep our community safe and to really work towards that end.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Pamela Osborne, Local 4. You mentioned how easy it is, Chief, to get your hands on a gun lock. If you could just talk about the simplicity, the steps that you take just to go into any precinct and pick one up. Thank
you for that question. And ma'am, I'm at a point where you can call. We'll bring it. Okay, just call me. We'll just tell us you can't get to us, we'll drop it off. I'll have the NPOs deliver them, and the sheriff is committed to that as well. If you want a gun lock, we will come out, and we will show you how to use it, and we will leave it at your house, no questions asked. But if you want to come to your precinct, every precinct will have them. The Public Safety Foundation on my way in showed me a bag of over 100 locks donated, and we've had others throughout the department that will be more than happy to deliver to you.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Just to expound on what the chief just said, and I missed it because I got kind of emotional because this is personal to me, with these kids shooting themselves and then shooting others. The Wayne County Sheriff's Office, 4747 Woodward, headquarters, we're giving them away 24 hours a day. All you got to do is come by. If you can't get to a police station, come by our office. They're right at the door. We will show you on the spot how to use them, and we will bring them to you as well. If you just give us a call, we'll bring them to you, or you can actually come to the office and get them. And I just want to make that clear, as the chief just said as well.
Kim
Thanks,
Russell
Sheriff.
from 7 Action News with another question. I'm thinking as I listen to you talk about how it's such a complicated issue that often it's really loving parents or loving grandmothers who make a mistake. Talk about what the parents, the caregivers who own these guns, how they act as they're being prosecuted, as they're being investigated, because people always think it's not going to happen to them.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. We've been out to these scenes. I've seen you at some of them, and they're devastated. I mean, but they're traumatized. They're devastated. They're emotional. Certainly, when their child is injured, it's a condition that they never thought they would see, and then the guilt and the heartbreak when they're watching their child recover for something that they could have prevented, and then after that, we let them know. Oh, and by the way, with this comes the prosecution of you being an irresponsible gun owner. So. We all have the power to correct this immediately to secure the weapons, and none of this has to happen.
And it spurs me to say this as well. We don't charge every case that comes into our offices by law enforcement. Again, this is not just a Detroit-only problem. It's all over the county, all over the state, really. And people thought we were crazy when we first started doing this, and then it started happening in Flint and other places, and my colleagues started calling me and doing the same thing. And so we are talking about responsibility. We're not talking about, at the end of the day, sending you to prison. We're not talking about necessarily even sending you to jail. But we want you to be responsible, and we want you to be criminally responsible if you leave your gun in the crib with the baby. If you leave your gun, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but in a way I have to. Because when you do something like that, that's just totally irresponsible and it's criminal. So again, we're not talking about the gun owner that does not have children in their home. Fine, do whatever you want, as long as you do it lawfully. And then if you try to store your gun, if you have a parent that has a child that finds a gun and injures themselves or kills themselves or another person, but you as a gun owner took every responsibility that you thought you were taking, we're not going to charge you. So again, it's discretionary, and we really are only talking about the most outrageous type of cases. But we have 12 last year, 12. So again, we have to do something, and you have to be held responsible. But we're not talking about sending you to a prison for a long prison term. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you did something criminally irresponsible, and then, as in every criminal case, a sentence is fashioned for the person individually that makes sense for that person. And I can't think of too many of these cases where there's been a jail or a prison sentence. But you still have to be responsible, and we still have to pay attention to criminal behavior. And our children are dying, and it's completely preventable.
I've got one question. Ryan Marshall, WWJ News Radio 950. I know we want to incentivize people to be able to keep guns safely in their homes. I don't know if this is feasible for this particular city, but are there any other programs that anybody can do, like maybe gun buybacks or anything for people that are trying to get guns off the street that could help to incentivize some people that may say, hey, I've got a gun in the house, but I don't necessarily need it?
We've looked at a number of things like that, and the unfortunate reality is the people who participate in the gun buybacks won't be the ones that are leaving the guns unsecure at their homes. But to talk about some of the community work, if real quick, Quincy, you mind, or someone from Ceasefire come up? Just.
Good afternoon, everybody. Quincy Smith, community organizer of Ceasefire Detroit. I want to say, maybe 2 months ago, our team started a campaign where we're purchasing through some of our funders gun boxes, the biometric gun boxes, okay? We're just, connecting with folks in the community. We have gun locks in our office, and folks just don't take advantage of it. So we tapped into some of our funders and some of our resources. We have a small amount, but we have partnered with DC Hope, and we were out in the King Homes actually passing out the biometric gun boxes. So thumbprint, you put it on, it opens up, you can safely put your gun inside, you can close it up, it's easy to set. And so we're hoping that we can provide more, and we can, tap into some more resources to provide more gun boxes, but we're thinking that can work. So we're hoping just to get more support from that. But the gun buyback thing, we just haven't seen that kind of support from that, and folks just don't take advantage of it. But we're hoping with the biometric boxes, that does come in handy, and folks take advantage of it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted to, Bishop Darrell Harris, Ceasefire Detroit, faith-based coordinator, to the gun buyback. So I represent several churches, probably about 50 churches across the metro Detroit area. Several of those churches have indeed tried the gun buyback, and it just is not feasible. Most of the persons who end up bringing those guns back are persons, as Chief has already mentioned, usually are not the ones who are leaving and being irresponsible. A lot of the guns that were brought in to buy back were ineffective, defective, didn't really work. Maybe somebody found a gun somewhere, they just brought it in. So we've seen that before. So I think that, we can talk about it the more, but just from the historical standpoint and having experienced that before, it has not been effective. But we are trying, as Quincy said, to deal with the gun boxes, because we've heard the complaints about the gun locks and being complicated to utilize. And so we're like, if you can afford to get this gun, then you should also be able to afford, if you don't like the gun locks, go and purchase a gun box, something that can be biometrically used. You can still keep the gun safe, away from the children, and if you needed access that was speedily, you can use your thumbprint in order to open it. And it's not biometric to any other thumbprint other than your own. So there are different ways, but this is completely preventable, and we most certainly stand behind the administration in trying to do something about this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. So as I close, you've got Ceasefire, you've got the Board of Police Commissioners in the room, Willie Bird and Linda Bernard here. You've got Madam Prosecutor, myself, the Sheriff, and the entire senior management team of the Detroit Police Department. And we're here to ask you to keep your children safe, keep your children alive, and care enough. Give a care for these children in the city of Detroit. We have to love on our children. So thank you all for being here. We're going to transition to another part of this meeting that does, and Madam Prosecutor, again, I know how busy you are. Thank you. Thanks, Sheriff. Thank you, Ceasefire. We're good. All right, good afternoon again. We're going to provide an update regarding the triple homicide in Evergreen that occurred on Sunday around 3:30 p.m. Let me preface my comments by saying this is still a fluid, active investigation. There are a number of different components that unfortunately we will not be able to discuss in detail, but we want to provide an update to make sure that the community knows that they're safe. We are confident that we have those responsible in custody, and I'm going to let Commander McGinnis talk a little bit more about that. We know that we've seen a number of different reports on the news and I'm going to let you just get into details as much as you possibly can, but please respect the fact that we cannot get into every layer of this case, so much so you notice that Madam Prosecutor is no longer here because we didn't want her exposed to some of the information in the case, because obviously she's going to be reviewing and issuing, hopefully issuing warrants at some point. With that, I'll call up Commander McGinnis.
Thank you, Chief.
So on Sunday at about 5:00 p.m., a family member who hadn't heard from their family member, their loved one, for several days went to check on them. And this was at the 15,300 block of Evergreen. And upon going to that location, they ended up discovering their loved one, his girlfriend, and a 5-year-old, her 5-year-old son, deceased in the house from apparent gunshot wounds. The police were summoned, and the investigation started immediately. And having a child that's near the age of the 5-year-old, my heartfelt condolences go out to the family. It's just unimaginable. That 5-year-old's birthday is 5 days from now. He would have been 6 years old. So I imagine the family is probably prepping for a birthday celebration, and tragically, their plans have changed. Immediately from us responding to the scene, community support came in. And I say that a lot at these press briefings, but I want you to know that when I was getting briefed on this case, the lead detective told me, please let them know and thank the community. And those in the community that helped us, I'm thanking you, and on behalf of Homicide, thanking you very much for your help and your support, because you are the reason why we were able to get so far in this investigation in such short order. So immediately we started the investigation. Tips came in. We were able, from those tips, to identify suspects. We activated our apprehension team, who yesterday was successful in locating these two subjects. They both were taken into custody without incident. They are both juveniles who are currently detained at the youth home. And we were able to serve multiple search warrants yesterday looking for evidence to support the investigation. There is high confidence that the individuals that we have taken into custody are responsible for this heinous act. And we have been in communication with the prosecutor's office, and we'll be submitting a warrant request for their review. And as the chief said, we hope that they will issue charges so that, I mean, it doesn't bring the loved ones back, but it does at least get some sense of closure for the family to know that the person or persons responsible will be held accountable. The investigation continues. There's still a lot of work to do. Tips were coming in even as I was walking downstairs for this press conference. So again, I want to thank the community. Your support is sincerely appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander. And I want to thank the community as well, but also thank the officers, the investigators, the commander, the captain. You know, as you can just hear in the commander's voice, and not to embarrass you, the impact that this crime has had on our entire department. These officers are passionate. They care about this community. They work tirelessly. And, you know, it's not just something I'm saying. I see it. I see it every day. And this case, like so many others, has really touched and tugged at the heart and the spirit of this department. And they have not stopped churning to get this perpetrator in custody. And the work continues. So I want to thank you, thank this executive team, and thank those investigators that don't get applauded, they don't get seen, and they don't get heard from. They do it all behind the scenes, but they have worked tirelessly on this case, and I couldn't be prouder of them. And as you indicated, Commander, it's some moniker of closure for the family, but it certainly doesn't bring back these victims. And this 5-year-old, it's just inexcusable for anyone to get whatever the issue was, to get that outrage with whomever they were having conflict with, to bring a baby into this and kill them. So thank you. With that, we'll take any questions that you may have.
Kim Russell from 7 Action News. Anytime a child is shot, the question always is why. What can you tell us, even though it's early in the investigation, about motive?
Yeah, Commander, I'm committed to holding all the information we can until they're charged. We'll try to release much more after charges are issued. They are working this case as we speak. It was just important for us to assure the community that these folks aren't running around getting ready to victimize another family, and that's why we're here. So it's not much I can give you. We have some motive, but we just can't release it yet, but we'll try to once the charges are issued from the prosecutor.
And how old are the people who are in custody?
They're both males. One is 16 years old, one is 17 years old. And I'd like to mention that they were known to these individuals who are victims, so it's not like they were unknown. So there was no stranger danger threat.
Jessica Dupdak, Fox 2, just to follow up on that, were they family of any of the victims?
No, I'm not gonna elaborate on that at this point.
And where were they arrested, even if it's
In the neighborhood.
in the neighborhood?
Yes.
Okay. And we never were told when the homicides happened. I know they were found Sunday. Any idea as to when it happened?
Yeah, in order to protect the integrity of the prosecutor's job, I don't want to get into those details at this point.
And sir, I talk to you often. I can tell this one got to you and got to the department. Can you explain just how you all are feeling?
Words can't explain what it's like to see a 5-year-old child laying deceased from gunshot wounds. It's incredible how very sad that is.
The two suspects in custody, were they known to police? Do they have any criminal history?
They are juveniles, so I'm not going to be able to elaborate as to any prior contacts that they might have had with the police.
Thank you all, and again, thank you, media, for helping us, and thank you to this amazing community that we have that aided us in getting these perpetrators off the street. Thank you.
Beginning all the way until the very end. But I want to bring in a special guest that we have here live on Live Now from Fox. Jacob Lassen is a ASU research scholar just coming back from Moscow and is going to give us some insight on Russian studies as well as what is happening in the world right now. Jacob, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So first off, just maybe